Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the Bad League Bad Pods podcast. I'm Zach Fuller. I'm here back with Ben Dunn after a week hiatus. Ben, how's it going this morning?
It's good, man. Hello. Glad to be back. Let's just say I might be glad that I missed Martinsville because I had a lot to talk about that I didn't get to talk about. So we're just going to move on from that and pretend it didn't happen and on to Vegas. Am I right?
Yeah, no, you missed out on the hot takes, which, yeah, probably a good thing. Yeah, Vegas, we'll just give our quick thoughts on how our races went real quick. I ran pretty well at the beginning, led a few laps. Then Owen kind of took off on that first green flag run, and then, um, the first caution came out, and I kind of changed my strategy from driving fast to sort of saving tires and trying to prepare for the long run. Which on the one long run we had, I was looking pretty good, but then obviously we had the caution during the pit cycle, and that really kind of screwed people up. So um, I ended up back in, I guess, sixth or seventh for the first overtime, and then got caught in the overtime chaos and ended up crossing the line 11th, which I thought it was going to be more like 15th. So um, 11th is not too bad, but even though I didn't get the result, that was I really had a lot of fun in that race, racing with Owen, and just I feel like the respect level was pretty high from everybody. So as we saw Aaron just randomly join and do some sort of animation.
Yeah, and then I kicked him out.
That caught me off guard for a second, but yeah. In any case, it was super fun, and yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't get the result, but at least I had fun. How was your race, man?
It was good. I hate to say that I'm disappointed with an eighth place finish because, it's not bad. A top 10 nowadays with the car counts, I should be okay with. But man, I was a little disappointed. I felt like I had a lot of speed. I learned early on, Dan and I learned in the replay afterwards that I kind of came up on him in the trial and booted myself down. I saved the car, but I fell all the way back to last place really early, and then I was able to, really show off some speed and crawl from all the way in the back of the pack back up to like seventh or eighth, and that was kind of the moment where I knew that I had a pretty good handle on the track and the car. So was able to crawl myself back. I never really had this tire saving mantra as anybody else, mainly because I just saw how loose the cars were and how many guys were losing it by themselves in practice. So I was like, hey, you know what? Uh, let's just go for it, and we'll just kind of check the tires as we go and see how we're
Right.
doing. I managed to save them pretty well throughout the race and do a pretty good job on it. But yeah, I had a lot of good runs where I was running up top five, and I felt like I had a lot of speed, and even not really taking care of my tires too much. I saw a lot of guys falling back to me throughout the race. So a disappointing eighth place when I feel like I had a top five speed or maybe even could get up there, compete top three. I don't know that I had a car that could win, but I feel like I definitely had some speed and was able to manage my tires enough that I would have been able to get up there. But eighth place, I can't complain too much. It's a good finish for me after a bit of an up and down race. Uh, you know, very, very content with my finish, and God, what a fun race it was, man.
It really was, and we had a second career victory for our rookie Jack Drucker. Um, he took home the win. Do we? I think we have him on the line. Do we want to bring him in here?
I believe we do. We do have Jack here ready to chat. So hang on one second. Let me drag him in here and we'll get him to talk about his win.
What's going on,
Jack,
Jack?
How we doing, fellas?
what's up, man? How we doing? How we feeling today?
Pretty good after last night. I'd say it was a really fun race. I mean, Fuller, me, you, Mays, and Hoffman were going at it pretty good there the whole race, and got lucky with the cautions there at the end to kind of get the win. But yeah, it was a fun race. I'd definitely say it was probably one of the better ones of the season.
Yeah, it really was. It was an absolute blast. It was incredibly racy throughout the entire race.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. I'd say the first run, at least for me, I was kind of saving my stuff and fell back a little bit. But then the second run, kind of realized the tires weren't going to fall off as bad as they were. And kind of, I think everybody realized that definitely by the third stint, because that third stint, everybody was going really hard on their tires at the beginning. So I think everybody was kind of not afraid to push it, even though we were all getting loose. So it made for some really exciting racing for sure.
Yeah, Jack, this is your second career win, only in your fifth career race in CRS, but I think this is the first time you've been in a like a proper weekly league. Is that right?
So I did a little bit of the old NASCAR Heat stuff back in the day when I was younger, which is fun, but it's you get a weekly schedule out of that, but it's a totally
Okay.
different animal. But in terms of running on iRacing, yeah, I've been running officials for years, but never really had the desire to go full on league racing, but kind of had to make a decision. Hey, do I want to start trying to get into this stuff instead of running sprint races with cautions every week in official?
Yeah.
So definitely started CRS, and CRS opened a couple doors for me to get to some other places too. But CRS is definitely the one I'm holding tight right now because that was kind of what got me into league racing here to begin with. Plus, I mean, it's a really good group too. I mean, everybody here is fast. They're basically it's really respectful racing, especially we get around each other every week. Everybody's giving space, try to let each other go if we're saving tires and on different plans. So yeah, no, it's a fun group to be with, and I appreciate y'all letting me be here.
We're happy to have you, man. It's been a good time. You've come in here and kind of kicked our ass to begin with, so we got to step our stuff up and really try to keep up with you here at this point. You're sitting on a looks like a 32-point lead, so I mean that's a nice comfortable lead to start the season. You gotten yourself 10 bonus points. I know you've swept the race before with a pole, most laps led and a
Chicago.
win. So yeah, you're off to a great start there. So we love to have you as well, and to have some good clean racing with you, and to throw another name at the top as far as a fast guy every week.
Yeah, I'd say for my season so far, I mean, you never know what was going to happen in Daytona. That kind of survived in advance. I picked up a couple spots coming to line, so that definitely helped. That one probably not be a drop week later down the road. Chicagoland, I won't say too much about that one, but that was a fun day.
Yeah.
Auto Club kind of felt like it got away a little bit because I feel like me, Hoffman, and Mays were probably the three cars going at it in that one, and
Definitely.
I kind of made a bit of a rookie mistake pushing too hard early, trying to catch Bloom at the end on that last stint. Kind of got snookered by Hoffman on that one, so that one kind of irked me. And then Martinsville felt like I had a chance in that one too, and then that how Martinsville ended, so. And then
Mm.
Vegas kind of felt like one was it felt good to get one back. I mean, I definitely feel like that last stint was going to be really interesting between myself, Hoffman, Fuller, and Mays for sure because we were all kind of on a different tire offset.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
that had gone green, it would have been interesting. I think depending on how well you took care of them coming out of the pits, because you would have had a huge advantage. If you had enough time to get up there, it would have been a pretty easy dub. But it would have been a question of like how many laps do you need to catch back up, and then because you would have been catching us at a very high rate, and then other than that, I think Hoffman and Mays probably would have had a good battle. Um, but yeah,
I,
look, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I kind of even my strategy for last night because I think it was you and Fuller or you and Mays pitted really early, I
Yeah,
think, and then Hoffman went a couple further. I was gonna pit with Hoffman. I kind of had the idea if I wasn't gonna beat him, like, because if he gets the one lap tire advantage, having one lap extra on him is not going to be enough to make up distance for
right.
what he got with that one set. So I'm like, I wanted to pit with him, but then thought, okay, let's try to get a couple more out of this, and I really wanted to get to 30. I think I pitted with like 33 because I was trying to keep it in a certain time bracket to keep running consistent lap time. And then the right rear really started to give out, so I pitted probably 3 laps earlier than I wanted to. If I would have waited those 3 laps, it would have been pretty good with the old
Yeah,
Matt Hand caution there. But I don't know, it kind of worked out. And then I thought the guys that stayed out were gonna. One of them was gonna stay out to trap us a lap down. I kind of when the caution came, I was like, oh my god, this is how this ends.
I was
But
scared, man.
yeah, you telling me. And yeah, no, I didn't think starting in the back was going to be that bad because even when we did the pit party in practice, I kind of had a couple instances like starting in the back and trying to figure out how to maneuver cars. It was a wide racetrack last night for sure. It was really good, like because I think y'all have had that with Vegas too. It kind of pins out to maybe the bottom lane and one lane off, but it felt like a
Yeah.
really wide racetrack. I know Fuller, you trying to kind of pound the top all night trying to get that to come in.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
typically where
mean,
I go.
yeah, you're right about that. It did feel like a wide racetrack. It felt like just about every single lane was available. I mean, especially like late in the race, it felt like that bottom lane really once we wore it in, and we had the practice and qualifying lane. We had it all carry over this week. So once we got to the race, like that bottom lane was already pretty worn in, and as it wore in throughout the race, it just felt like it opened up everything else on the track. I mean, I felt
Yeah,
like I was using the one lane up. I was splitting that first seam to kind of miss the bumps. I was able to run a little higher than that, like a middle to high line, and then even like you just said, there were some guys up on the high line really kind of able to make that work. So I thought that was an absolute blast with that this car was able to take all those lanes and really you were able to find speed just about anywhere out there if you wanted to.
I think what was really refreshing about it too is also, I mean, I know we kind of were worried about dirty air at some points. I feel like you could really get behind a guy and not really lose a ton of nose on it. Like it would stay gripped up. I
yeah,
think a few times you get close to somebody in 3 and 4, and the right rear would slip out that little bit extra because you lost some of that
Yeah.
downforce.
Right.
But for the most part, especially I think about the second stint when I was going at it with Mays, and then the third stint when I was going at it with Hoffman, because maybe me and Hoffman probably swapped the lead 5 or 6 times, kind of going back and forth with each other on that stint. We were both really worried we were going to tank on tires there. That was fun but worrying. But yeah, no, for sure. I definitely think like you could definitely poke a headlight out on a guy and make a good amount of ground. And even if you ran in line with him, it wasn't really that big of a concern, which is I think is going to be promising for Atlanta. I don't know how the setup's going to go there with it definitely probably being tighter compared to
yeah.
Vegas,
It
but
is.
hopefully that's a good sign for Atlanta where we're not, kind of all stuck.
Yeah, and I think on your topic of like the dirty air, like the biggest thing I noticed, like you said, was if you kind of entered a corner behind someone, you were okay. The car didn't really get too out of control. The biggest issues that I noticed was if I entered a lane or if I entered on a lane slightly off of someone and throughout the corner they kind of moved down in front of me, that's when the car that dirty air really kind of hit you. It wasn't like a immediate on entry, right behind someone. It wasn't like that really killed you. But man, if you had a little bit of clean air and then they got in front of you, that's when I kind of noticed that the car was getting a little loose throughout the night.
Yeah, it's kind of like that shut-off valve effect. It was okay while you still had at least a little bit on it to keep it settled, but once you had that shut-off valve and it really unset, like it kind of took the car out of the racetrack, and then once it's out of the racetrack, that kind of go into that weird four-wheel slide. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what kind of haunted me in turn four all night. But it's
Yeah,
kind
turn
of
four, I agree.
turns 1 and 2, I felt really good. I felt like even with the guys I was battling with all night, I could probably make up at least a car length through 1 and 2, have a car length, get a really good drive through there, kept it pointed, kept the right rear in the track. But then every time I got to 3 and 4, I'd be lifting a little bit early, try to let it roll the 1/3 mark, pick up the throttle about the half mark, and then usually I could get it to set. But then, man, if that right rear started to come out from under it, you kind of had that decision where it's like, do I really want to drive through this and risk, sliding up to the wall, or do you want to lift a little bit, sacrifice the exit, but keep it safe? And there was a couple times where it's like you just kind of had to commit to it, kind of dirt track it off the corner and take the risk, because that happened to me in qualifying too, where you get that my lap one kind of sucked in qualifying because I really just lost right rear trying to gamble with it and kind of flew too close to the sun on that, and then I mean lap two worked out, got me a pole award, but it definitely turned four all night was probably the hardest corner to handle.
Yeah, it really was. And if like you said, where instead of if you opted for not dirt tracking it and just kind of lifted to kind of maintain yourself, I kept finding myself all night. Anytime that I'd do that, the guys behind me would just get such a huge run down the front stretch that would make it really hard going into turn one to kind of maintain my position. And I threw a couple blocks sometimes, especially late in the race, and just did everything I could to defend myself there. Because yeah, those guys who got off clean, if you lifted because you were like me and you're scared of dirt tracking it and hitting that wall because I did twice. You lost a little bit of time on those guys and had to do some work to keep them behind you. So it was interesting. I think it was a lot of fun. It was a great race.
That high line in 3 and 4 was some of the most fun I've had in a very long time. Also, I mean 1 and 2 the high line was good, but I feel like it didn't really come in until like the second half of the race because at the
Yeah.
beginning it was awful. But 3 and 4 the whole night was um, you could pass just about anybody if you ran it the right way on the high line. Which I feel like at Vegas the high line in 3 and 4 is usually the harder one to run, but last night for whatever reason it was really good.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel like
Yeah.
I could never get up as high as you were running there, Fuller, in 3 and 4. I could never like I could get up there and run it, but I couldn't make speed off it. I kind of had to run like lane and a
mhm.
half down to make pace. But I definitely feel like in 1 and 2, that was definitely one of those places where the old expression, just go where they're not. And that the second to last stint where we came off of the lap down deal and had to start in the back, kind of using those upper lanes that everybody was pinned on the bottom, you can get some really good runs and then translate that to the straightaway.
Yeah, big time. So Jack here, before we let you go, just looking at the upcoming schedule, we got Phoenix next week, Chicago Street, Atlanta, then Bristol, and then the All Star break. What tracks are you really looking forward to here going into the rest of the season?
I feel like Phoenix is going to be a little bit of a wild card. It's going to be one of those races that separates the men from the boys a little bit because I feel like we're all kind of confident at mile and a halfs, but I feel like Martinsville was a little bit of a tell for that.
Hmm.
I feel like that's going to be one of those races with a lot more throttle modulation and everybody kind of having to slip slide a little bit more depending on how hot it is. I feel like it's going to be one of the races where we can get spread out. Chicago, I know Fuller, you're licking your chops for that one, but that's going to be one of those races. Just try to keep a clean car, keep the fenders on it, and get some good points. Definitely excited for Atlanta. I feel like I can have a really good day there. And we'll see where it goes. Trying to just take it 1 week at a time. Because at this point, I know we got the 3 drop weeks, but if you kind of make it where your worst drops are like P8, P9, P10, it's going to be, just hold on tight to that points lead and don't let it go.
There you go, man. That's what you got to do there. I look forward to the next couple races here. Looking to see if you can keep this pace alive. I think we're all kind of excited to see that. Very exciting start to the season for you. And, you got some speed and hopefully you can keep it up going forward, man.
Appreciate it, fellas. Again, it's a privilege to be here. I'm happy to be here and racing with everybody. And it's some good relationships too out on racetrack. Everybody's having a good time joking around. So, again, appreciate it and can't wait for next week.
Yeah, man. Hopefully we can get you back on here soon. Thanks for coming.
Sounds good. I hope to be back for the winner's circle, man. We'll see, though.
Yeah, there you
Stiff
go.
competition.
Jack Drucker on
Thank
Absolutely.
you, guys.
Bad League, Bad Pods.
So Fuller, I want to just kind of touch on some things here.
Yep.
I was looking here at the race. So one of these stats we'll dive into, I think, right after this. But it was 129 laps. Took us what, two green white checkers,
Yeah, 2 overtimes.
um, and we had 23 lead changes with 10 different leaders. So quite the shakeup in the
Really?
field. And then yeah,
I
and
didn't
then the
realize it
big
was that
one.
much.
Yeah, it was a lot going on. Some of that might have been the green flag cycle, but still, even
Well,
without that, that's only a couple here or there, right? So,
yeah.
without with the other stat that I'm looking at, that is the one I think we can touch on, is going to be that we had six cautions for 18 laps. So the first two, it seems like we had about 20 lap runs, 20
Yeah.
21 laps on those first two, and then a couple others that happened later really kind of impacted the race, especially the late caution where it looked like Matt Hand had some sort of a equipment malfunction or something like that, and
Yeah.
um, you know really shook things up in the middle of the pit cycle, which can be good and it can be bad. And unfortunately, I think for you and I, it was pretty bad.
Yeah. Um, it was so Owen pitted on the same lap as me and he made it through, so I don't have the excuse other than um I mean it kind of yeah, I just was on bad tires and I think it's not a hot take to say that Owen's pretty good at managing old tires, probably better than me. So he ended up fourth. I fell back to like sixth before the sergeant caution, but um yeah, man, it was just really unfortunate. I mean, it's obviously nothing intentional or anything, but
No.
when a caution comes out in a pit cycle like that, and I had like I think Owen and I had like 6 or 7 laps on our tires when it happened, and it's just like, man, it's just it's a bummer when something out of your control affects, you know, how your race goes. But I mean that's racing. Sometimes I mean like if I had stayed out, if I had chosen to stay out with Jack there, I would have been in a really good spot. It was just you make the best decisions with the information you have and hope it works out. Um,
Yeah, and likewise, like you said on that caution, I had waited I believe a couple laps after you guys, and I think Nick and I pit right on the same lap, so we came out and at the time of the pit cycle it was fairly early compared to everybody else, and I'm back in like 14th, and I kind of was assuming that was the only time in the race where I kind of was assuming, all right, we might, we've had a good track record for a while here, we've had a good green flag run. I think, I think we can. I can kind of manage the tires and save here and see if I can't make something happen at the end of the race if we stay green. So I wasn't pushing too hard. I was kind of just hanging with Nick, and we were getting ourselves, in I think what felt like a good position
mhm.
to hopefully, get some spots when the other guys pit. Just unfortunately that caution came out and I was trapped back there, and like I think I restarted like 12th or something like that. And there were a lot of guys in front of us with fresh tires. Real quick before we dive into that kind of last caution where the guys, had the new tires that stayed out. I just
Mhm.
want to touch on too. I thought one of the coolest parts of the night. So we had the first run was about 20 laps. Second run was about 20 laps. During those first two runs, we had a lot of guys kind of being conservative, saving their tires. Guys kind of falling back and then trying to make a push as the run went on. Once that third restart happened, my goodness, did everyone's
Yeah.
mentality change, because that was one of the best restarts that I think that I've seen in this league in a long time. There were about 6 or 7 cars up there just dicing it up, racing really hard. Um, you know, Getting after it. It felt like there were about 5 or 6 guys that could lead that race at any point on the restart. Everyone seemed to kind of not care about their tires anymore, and the entire pace of the race picked up, and it was really exciting. I wish I could go back and watch it, just because it seems like it was some really, really exciting racing between, like I said, like maybe 7 or 8 cars up
Yeah.
front there. It was super, super cool.
I think it was like 8 of us, and I was kind of in the fifth to sixth place area, and I was kind of trying to save a little bit because I could tell people were really pushing, but it was really uncomfortable back where I was. Like for the first like 10 laps of that restart, I even like said it on my stream. I'm like, man, I do not like this. And I mean, looking back on it, it was fun because that's why you do this, you know, to get those adrenaline moments and racing close with people. But man, it was very stressful because I knew just one slip up from somebody, and we were racing around some people that we haven't raced with a bunch. Dylan Perry was up there, I believe. Brandon
Yep.
Bender was up there too, and it's not a shot
Yep.
against
Dan
them.
was
You
back.
just yeah, Dan
D-
was back. It's just like
he was up there.
you just don't know kind of how they race and um if they're leaving space or not. So like when I'm around like say you, Owen, Dylan, I've raced you guys probably close to 100 times or something in this league. So
Yeah.
I feel
Years
very
now, right? Yeah.
yeah, I feel very comfortable racing around y'all. But when it's people you haven't raced with in a while or have never, it can get pretty stressful because you have no gauge of what they're gonna do. But I think after last night, some of those guys definitely earned some respect. We can maybe go ahead and touch on Dan. I mean, I know he's really good at mile and a halfs, but I did not expect him to come shooting out of a cannon like he did last night. I mean,
Yeah.
he was driving so well for not having been in the league in a while, and I don't know if he's done iRacing, throughout that time stretch and just hasn't been in the league, but really great showing, and he ended up fifth.
Yeah, I'll give him those props too, because it definitely didn't seem like he had done iRacing in a while, because in practice he's sitting there trying to get iRacing on the
Yeah,
correct
that's a
monitor.
good
So
point.
that's a tell for me that maybe we haven't fired this up in a while. But it was
Yeah,
really good to have him back. I've always thought that Dan's really good on those mile and a half tracks. In the past, I remember he's always been really strong there. I think he's had a win at like Charlotte or maybe even a Vegas in the past. So I knew he was going to be good at this, and he showed it. And man, what a chance he almost had there without that late caution. It was him and Bender up front. I think Bender was pulling away. He had a really good opportunity to get a good finish um, it, with his strategy there.
Yeah.
I know he got a little loose on one of the late restarts and wound up having a not ideal finish, but for a while there it was him and I think Dan was doing his best to try and chase him
Yes.
down. I don't
Yes.
know if he could have had that race stayed green. I think we could be talking about a completely different winner this week. So, um, really, really, really interesting stuff. But yeah, a great return for Dan back. Hopefully he comes back a lot more this season.
Yeah.
Something tells me that for a Midwest road course, street course race, we might
Mm.
see that white 45 car back on track again.
Mm.
That's something that he's pretty good at on the road courses. So we'll keep an eye on Dan going forward, see what he does. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully we can get him back again.
Yeah, and you talk about his mile and a half stuff. He has 4 wins in the league, and it's Chicagoland, Charlotte, and Michigan, which you can kind of throw Michigan in there too. So
Yeah.
um, he definitely has a lot of speed there. Anything else you want to touch on in the race before we get into the points?
No, not that I can think of.
Oh, the beat
Like I said,
the.
just a
Do we want to do the beef segment?
was there any beefs from the evening? I mean, I think I don't have anything that I know of beef wise.
There
Brandon
was.
and I got together at one point on the backstretch,
I
and
saw that.
wasn't anything bad really. I mean, it was I was a little frustrated at the time, but I threw a couple blocks on him and raced him tight. So that's kind of how I like to retaliate to beefs. I'm not a wrecker. I'm just
Right.
not going to give you an inch. So he apologized again after the race on Discord, and I said, "Hey, man, all good. I raced you tight. We're good.
Yeah.
That's just kind of it happened. It's not anything that's going to happen going forward. I think we're all good there. But yeah, other than that, you know, uh, I had a little run in with BC, which I apologize extensively for. I
Yeah.
literally just had a brain fart and didn't turn in the trioval and kind of kind of booted him out. I felt bad about that. So maybe I'll watch my bumper if BC's behind me for a little payback here in the future. But I don't think anything beef worthy on my end here, and nothing else really I saw.
Yeah, there was after the race we looked at the situation between Roten and Colin, and it didn't really seem that bad, but during the race there in the quiet channel, Roten was not very pleased with how Colin was racing him. So
Yeah,
um
yeah.
I
Some
just
maybe some like impossible beef. The fake beef.
right, just
Nothing.
the yeah, yeah, right, yeah, that's funny. Um and then there on the final restart when we were watching the replay, people were trying to make it beef between me and Austin, but I feel like that was like a
Yeah, and
racing
that I
deal
mean
there.
that last incident was there was a lot going on there that when Bender got a little loose
Yeah.
and Travis was there. Travis had nowhere to go. You had nowhere to go. Brandon was below you.
Yeah,
He had
it
nowhere
was
to
four
go.
wide at
So
that point.
yeah, it was a little bit chaotic. So
Yeah, well,
seems like all was natural. No beefs really to report on here. So I know the people tune in for the beef, but
yeah,
unfortunately nothing to report this week.
nothing too crazy. We'll see going into
No.
Phoenix. That track I feel like maybe could cook up some beef.
I think it's done it in the past, so I wouldn't be surprised. We'll keep our eyes out, and maybe we'll have something to report next week. Who knows?
Yeah, so let's get into the points here. I got it pulled up. I mean, first of all, obviously Drucker with a 32-point lead over Hoffman. Those two
Yep.
each have 2 wins. So next week the drop weeks will be more legit. We'll probably report on that starting next week because we'll have
Yeah.
kind of three scores and 3 drops. I think when the drops set in, those two are going to be extremely close. And then something that caught my eye just when I was looking at it, BC dude, he's having an outstanding start to this season.
He really is. Yeah. Where did he
Um,
finish last night? I know he had a good run. Yeah, he finished third. I
yeah,
mean, that's incredible. Like he's definitely off to his best start here in CRS.
Auto
Just
Club, I think
a
he
great
finished fourth.
yeah.
Yeah,
Two top fives and four top tens through five races. I mean, that's a damn good start for him there, and you love to see it, and hopefully he can keep that up and stay up there. He's fifth place in points. He gained a spot last night
yep.
Let's see who lost one. I don't even know who lost. Anyway, oh, it looks like Roten. So yeah, that takes me
Yeah.
right into my usual update of our biggest winners and losers points wise of the week. Looks like our winners. Owen jumped 5 with a good finish last
Yep.
night, and myself, I managed to get myself up 3 points positions
There you
with a
go.
good finish last night. And then Austin and Roten kind of took a slam, both losing 3 spots in points last night. Tough nights for them. So the points are still tight, man. If you look, we still got a lot of single digit gaps throughout the field,
Yeah.
um, in the top 10 there. So you love to see that. The point racing's tight, especially having, only 15 points, only 15 positions pay points. And we're consistently getting well over 15 cars a week. So that's kind of interesting. And that could be something to keep an eye on going forward, because all it takes is one of these guys up at the top to have a not so good finish and score 0 points.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the points can get really interesting and some big moves can happen. So whether it's up or down.
Yeah, and especially with how these cautions have been coming out, like, um, you wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if you just get caught on the wrong strategy and then get mired back, back there below 15th, it makes for a pretty unfortunate day finish wise. Another thing, just want to mention, Combs is up there, kind of picking up where he left off last season in that little third place spot. I think he's he's been really fast. He's been up there. I don't know if he's really had like the winning speed at any of these tracks, but he's had like top 3, top 4 speed every single week. Martinsville, he I think maybe could have won that race had it played out a little bit differently, but um, Combs is having a really good start too.
Yeah, fun little stat I'm looking at here. I always am interested in this one just because it says a lot about how people are kind of managing the races and running out there. Total passes is a fun stat of mine. I just love to see. I love that they track that now on the Sim Racer Hub, and I'm able to kind of look at that. You're leading the way there, Fuller, with 158 total passes
Oh, is that
through
right?
through our 5 races. So, we got about a dozen guys that have over 100 passes so far through those races. So, I mean, that just tells you how things really are kind of crazy out there, and really, really racy this season with the car and the tracks that we've been to. That's a pretty cool little number and cool stat to look at there. I find that interesting, and I think that pattern will continue. I think we've had enough races now where we can see that guys are out there passing, guys are able to race and make moves, and we love that.
Yeah, I think this car is so much fun, especially coming off of last season where a lot of guys maybe didn't have a ton of fun in the truck, even though that's what everybody
No,
asks
not
for.
at all.
But
Yeah.
this is it's very refreshing to be in a car where you can really make passes. I think my number on the total passes might be a little bit inflated from Auto Club where I had to come through the field twice, and then Martinsville last week was obviously everybody was making passes in that one, but yeah, it's that is a fun one. I like looking at average running position too. Jack Drucker's leading that one with Hoffman right behind him, and then I'm right behind Hoffman. So yeah, there's some fun stats. It's been a fun season so far. I'm excited to see this championship battle. I feel like it'll be just right now looking at it. I think Drucker's definitely going to be up there in his rookie season. Hoffman obviously, um, Combs with the consistency. Myself, if I can actually take one of these races home as a win, and then Owens down in ninth, but he's going to be up there by the end. So I mean, we have a
Absolutely.
we have the potential for a legitimate like 5-way battle for the lead in the championship. So it's the league's in a great spot right now.
Yeah, and so we head into Phoenix next week. This is New Phoenix with the dog leg. We have been here 2 times in the past in this car,
Yep.
in the Xfinity car, and I believe we've had some fairly decent racing in those seasons. Uh,
Yeah, it looks
what
like
do you think?
season 5 might have been, and I don't believe I was. Yeah, I was. That was during my sabbatical, but that was a 15 caution race. So
Oof,
yeah, 200 laps. 60 of them were cautions. So that one may have been a little bit more wacky. And then we went in season 6. That was a 4 caution race. So that one was a little
that's
bit.
pretty good.
I feel like I remember that race. I ended up fifth, and I feel like the dirty air in that race was just awful. Like I remember finishing that race and being so annoyed. with just how the car and track combo was. But that being said, we did a recruitment race here, and it was not nearly as bad as I remember. So that is promising. I'm looking forward to this race.
Yeah, and like you had said, our season 5, we had Nick won the race,
Hmm.
um, which is a big win for him. All four the top four guys were underneath the second, and then our fifth place finisher was just a tad over a second. So it sounds like it was a very tight race. We
Yeah,
ran exactly 200 laps, so it sounds like that was a no overtime finish. So for the finish to be that close with ending under green, no overtimes, that's pretty awesome, pretty promising
yeah,
to look forward to. I think season 6. I'm pulling up my winner right now. I'm not 100% sure who it
yeah.
was.
It was Owen, and
There it is.
just
Yep.
a quick shout out. Donnelly finished second in both of those races, so he obviously runs pretty good here. And then Nick Sargent came home third, so two podiums for Sargent. Actually, the podium was the same drivers in each race.
Oh wow. Yeah,
In
I think we gotta look forward to Nick running pretty well next week.
Yeah,
Donnelly, another thing that when I was looking at Phoenix, I also originally I included old Phoenix layout, and I noticed Donnelly has our track record at the old Phoenix. So
oh
I think we're just kind of proving point here that Donnelly is pretty strong at this track.
yeah.
I know he wasn't here last week, so hopefully we get to see him back next week, and he gets to come out and race a track that he's pretty damn good at.
If my memory serves me correctly, I think he won Iowa in season 10, and I would kind of throw Iowa in as a similar track to Phoenix. So he's good on those shorter tracks where you got to use a little bit of brake and work the throttle. So um, the shorter kind of not quite a short track, not quite a speedway style track. So yeah, I think he'll definitely run pretty good.
Yeah, I remember from our times, racing Phoenix that it might not be the most exciting race to watch on TV, but it is pretty fun
It's fun
to
to
drive
drive.
here in
Yeah,
iRacing. So I expect to see a lot of excitement out of that. Obviously, the open dog leg always throws a cool little wrench into things of,
yeah,
guys who's going to dive down there, who's going to stay on the track. Some people see it as a benefit. Some people, like me, are scared they're going to bottom out and wreck themselves going into one. So I think it's all going to be dependent on setup too, right? How much will the setup allow us to dive down there and take that kind of rough on and off of the track, and get back cleanly? I think that could be interesting. I think if it's a little bit of a rough thing to do, I think you see more guys stay on the track and some guys who are kind of ballsy and need to gain positions diving down there. I think it'd be really interesting.
yeah. Another thing I just wanted to throw out. I remember in the recruitment race, after about 15 laps on the run, I was starting to shift down into third and one and two, and I felt like that really helps. So, helped me get off the corner a little bit quicker. So that could be another thing to watch out for. Who's doing that? Who's not?
One
Um,
and two or three and four. You got to remember it's backwards now.
yeah, the new one and two, the wider one. Yeah,
Okay,
um,
got it. The wider, got it.
yeah. I will say it worked in both corners, but I felt like it was just too much of a hassle to do it in the tighter corner in the new three and four. So um, and it wasn't a huge gain. But in one and two, once those tires got wore out, you could really make it work. One and two has really grown on me. I used to really hate that corner, but I did a B fixed earlier in the week, and it was a lot of fun. And then yeah, our recruitment race was fun there too.
Yeah, and I think um, another thing is that like you had touched on with the downshifting. Another thing key in this car is that tires, we've learned through the season, are so important.
Yeah,
Downshifting like that, are you going to overheat your tires? Are you
yeah,
going to
good,
put too
great
much
point.
on your tires by doing so? So that's another risk you run. If you're going to try to do the downshift method, are you going to overheat your tires? How is that going to react? If especially if you start doing it later in the run when the tires are already worn, might be a little hot. It could be kind of a risky move for guys to try. So it'd be really interesting to keep an eye on that in the race. I think that's going to be kind of one of the more exciting things that we see.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it's a 148 lap race, so this will be our shortest one at Phoenix in the CRS history. So, and I think 148 laps around there is, if we don't get a lot of cautions, that's going to be a pretty quick race. So, um,
yeah,
if we do
and
get some long runs, then that'll be interesting. If we can get maybe like a one or two caution race, then the tires will really come into it.
yeah, and I know that Brandon, or I'm sorry, Jack kind of touched on it when he was in here. about depending on how hot it is. I can go ahead and tell you by looking at the race already set up on iRacing, the weather forecast we are looking at, it's going to be 80 degrees and clear. So that sounds like it's going to be providing us a nice hot slick track, no real wind to deal with or anything like that, and a 4 to 6% cloud cover. So we're going to be looking, I think, at a pretty hot track. So that's really going to be important. What we've learned at Vegas, where the one line kind of gets worn in, does the rest of the track open up? I think that's going to be the question heading into Phoenix: is are we going to be able to move the cars around as much or at all and find some speed? I think that's going to be an important thing to work on throughout practice and throughout the week as we're getting ready for it.
Another little wrench just on that topic. It looks like it's going to be a dusk race. So, um, from what it says in the schedule, so it'll
Yep.
be it'll start out hot and slick, and then um, as the sun sets, it'll get a little bit quicker. So,
Yeah, it looks like practice will start at 3:45 p.m. So that'll take us to 4:45 for about 4:50 or so. I think iRacing adds about 10 minutes in between sessions.
uh,
So, and then about 5 minutes qualifying. So it looks like we're probably going to start at about 5:30 ish their time. So we are going to have a little bit of race in the daytime, and then we are going
hmm
to make our way into the evening. Which, like you said, that should be interesting to see how the track changes. How much does it actually cool off?
yeah,
Throughout the run. I think that's going to be all kind of some important stuff to keep an eye on headed into Phoenix, and I look forward to a good race out there.
yeah. This is definitely the most excited I've been for a Phoenix race. Um,
Yeah, that's saying something. Yeah.
yeah. So let's move on here from CRS. We had NASCAR at COTA last week. I was at the race, so I don't have the best picture of kind of what went on throughout the whole thing. Obviously, like when you go to a race, it's great to be there, but you don't always get the full story. I was trying to keep up on Twitter and stuff. I feel like I have a solid gauge of kind of the things that were going on, but you watched on TV. How was the race from your end?
Yeah, so I was we were working Sunday, so I didn't get home until about the beginning of stage two. I tried to keep an eye on while I
Okay.
was at work. I had a tab open, watching the beginning of the race, but I really didn't tune in until stage two. But man, my biggest takeaway from this was just that this new layout is awesome. It's like we
Yeah.
somehow made a short track road course. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the funnier things I've seen already from it was Junior talking on his podcast about how he hated old Coda. Pace laps took too long. Laps themselves took too long. It would just get drawn out and kind of boring, which I completely agree with everything about it.
Yeah.
And this change, I mean, I, initially I didn't really. I was like kind of like whatever. Like they're shortening the track, cool, whatever. Like it's not. I don't
hmm
think it's going to improve the racing at Coda. And holy shit, that did improve the racing at Coda. Um, it was wild, man. Right from the get go, it was chaos.
Yeah.
Ross
Jeez.
Chastain going 6 wide in a turn one and just annihilating Chase Elliott right off the bat. I mean,
And then
what a classic start.
that involved Hamlin and Zilich as well.
Yep, and then Zilich, who looked like very promising. Everybody was kind of excited for his debut and what he was going to do all week, and he got involved in that Suarez wreck, and I don't know
Yeah.
that it was the smartest. Obviously, I am not Connor Zilich or any type of professional race car driver, so my criticism can be taken with a grain of salt. But like you watch his onboard and Suarez spins, and it looks like he just kind of guns it to go around the outside of that, and then just plows into
Yeah.
Suarez. So maybe not the brightest idea there to try and get around that wreck, but Connor's young. He learns these kind of things. I think that was a big thing on Saturday was that he was really fast, but he was kind of a little out of control at times. So
Yeah.
I think he's just got to rein some of that stuff in, and he'll be okay. But yeah, he got taken out of that race early in one of those incidents, and yeah, just kind of a crazy race as far as some weird little things happening throughout the race. We had the Cindric and Ty Dillon thing happen, which I don't know what that was. I don't know what led up to that, but
Austin
uh,
Spindrick.
yeah, I'm a bit of a I'm a little biased, obviously
I
being a fan
know.
of his, but that was quite the right rear. I saw a bunch of people calling for his suspension, similar to Bubba and Chase.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
On
know about
Twitter. I don't
that.
know. I mean, I get it. It's a right rear.
He did hit the wall. That was the one thing. Like
Yeah.
I was more on the side of no, it's a road course, but when you watch the onboard, it doesn't look great. And then the fact that he
It
hit
doesn't.
the fact that he hit the wall too is like, well, if we're gonna be consistent, and they were going like 100 miles an hour at that point. I mean, and that may not seem that fast, but I mean, think about you're on the highway and someone
Yeah,
spins you
dude.
out. I mean, you're only going
Yeah.
probably 80 there. That's pretty
Yeah,
terrifying.
man.
So I don't know. I wouldn't be
And
surprised if he got maybe a points and a monetary fine, but I feel like a suspension might be a little bit overboard.
yeah. Then again, I feel like, it's Thursday. We haven't heard anything about it, so I feel like we're just kind of moving on from that. That'll be something to keep an eye on
Yeah.
going forward. And you know what? Ty Dillon wasn't even the only Dillon brother that had problems. There was that
Ooh.
incident with Denny and Austin Dillon as well, where I think, I guess Denny just locked up in a bunch of dirt on the track and slid
Yeah.
right into Austin Dillon and lit him up.
He said on his
Um,
podcast he went offline to try to poke his nose down there, and then there was some dirt, and he said it was like driving on black ice. Um,
yeah,
and when that
it's
happened,
gotta be a
man,
scary feeling.
I had my Denny Hamlin hat on and my Denny Hamlin shirt on, okay, and I'm sitting there and I'm rooting for Kyle Busch because he's running away with this win, and I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
I would love to be at this race when he breaks this winless streak. And then we look on the replay, and Austin Dillon's in the gravel, and then they show what happened, and I just take the hat off, and I'm like, Denny hand job. I
Yeah,
mean,
and then like they get Dylan out of the kitty litter, and we just decided we would extend the caution by letting him drive back to the pits and just dump gravel all over the
yeah,
racetrack. It was kind of funny that Fox cut to an image of him pulling away, and as they're showing him driving away, I mean there's just like what seems like pounds of rocks just
yeah.
flying out of the back of that car during the caution. So that made that a little longer there. Fox was able to sneak in a couple more commercials there, but
Well, good for them.
yeah, I can tell you just, speaking on them, I know you didn't get to see the broadcast, so from what I saw, things were okay. There was a couple times where, Fox just gonna Fox.
I
There
saw
was
on
like a
Twitter there was some backlash over Fox.
Yeah, I think the biggest one was a moment where it was Bell and Bush, and they were battling, and it was like one of the most heated parts of the battle where Christopher Bell went in on a move, and you can even hear it in Clint Boyer's
Yeah,
voice, because Bell goes to take a move, and Clint calls it out. There goes Bell. He's making a move, and the Fox camera cuts to a view that is just literally the backside of some grandstands that are blocking the entire view of the track.
it's just
When
unacceptable,
Bell and
man.
Bush are side by side, and you could hear Clint just like, you could hear him sighing
Yeah,
in the mic, and just that him and Kevin are just up there just shaking their heads, just biting their tongue. But
there's
all in
literally
all,
a
I thought.
helicopter flying over the track the entire day. Like, why not just use that? I mean, it's just I don't.
I don't any other angle. Like, but
And
it's just
onboard, like,
the you know what, with the onboards though, the race director was just kind of pissing me off because it was just there were so many times where we're in these battles, especially late in the race, and we had that like 4 car battle that was
yeah,
just incredible. Like, we don't need to cut to bumper cams and shit. Like,
right.
I'm tired of it. Like, cutting to Kyle Busch's bumper cam while there's a 4 car battle and he's in second place. Like, that just does nothing for me.
It shows you
Keep the
nothing.
focus on the cars. Yeah, keep the cameras, to the good angles on the cars. I want to watch this entire thing throughout. I don't need freaking bumper cams. I don't need any of that stuff. Like, let me just see the 4 cars racing and playing out. If you want a bumper cam picture in picture, sure, go for it. But like, just that's just the kind of little things that hopefully as we go on it'll improve.
Well,
People are very critical of Fox. It's kind of just become a meme nowadays.
I
But
mean, it's. I understand, like, online you have haters and stuff, and that's I think that's what Fox brushes this off as, is like, oh well, people are just hating online. But when NBC takes over, you don't have these complaints, and it's not a bias toward one or the other. It's just what is playing out in front of you. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, there's a very clear difference, and we say every week we're like, hopefully it'll get better, but dude, it's been like this I mean, since like 2019. I mean, there's
Yeah.
nothing has changed. Like,
Yeah.
zero part of it has changed. It's the same exact things, and yeah, it's we're a broken record at this point about Fox.
Yeah, exactly. That's the most frustrating thing. you know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
not gonna tune me away from the TV. It's not that bad.
right. Yeah.
I'm still gonna watch.
Uh,
So
being at
that's where they get us.
being at the racetrack, I really enjoyed the race. There in stage two, it was it got a little, kind of processional with because you had Kyle Busch who was just dominating. I mean, that was really the reason why it was kind of a lull there in the middle, because he was just running so well. And I will say from the fans' perspective at the track, because I went in 2021 as well, and they ran the full layout. This layout was a huge win. I mean, you had
Yeah.
95 laps, so you got to see the cars twice as much. And yeah, I mean
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
yeah,
You're
I mean,
right.
I think that's probably one of the reasons why they did it. Also, obviously, the caution periods took way too long on the big track, but
My goodness. I mean, that's like a 6-minute lap under caution, man. It
yeah.
was brutal.
I mean, with how when you go to a race, you're with people, you're talking about the race, and you got to shut up when the cars go by because you can't hear a thing.
Yeah.
Like it was almost like an oval, the time period that you had to talk. Like you could maybe get a few sentences in, and then the cars are back. Whereas on
Yeah.
the other
And once,
one, you
especially
could
once the, go
you
ahead.
you could uh you could talk for like a minute and a half on the full layout, because they're just they're by you so fast. But that stadium section, that's where I sat for Xfinity and the Cup race. That turn right before the carousel, and you could see the whole stadium section. They actually have seats in that section, which is nice. There's a few other places that have bleachers, so the seats were great. It's a world class facility. I know some people are talking about maybe it won't return next year. I really hope it does.
I think this solidified that it's got to come back, right? I mean, this is
Yeah,
a great race.
yeah. I think if they run the full layout and it's kind of a snoozer, I think we're more at risk. But just with the crowd that was there, and I guess the race looked pretty good on TV too. Also, that finish was insane. I mean,
So
everybody
close
was
for
on the
Kyle
edge of their
Busch, man.
seats. Yeah, everybody was on the edge of their seats at that finish. So um, I hope they come back. Also, I think I guess it was Hamlin talking about it on his podcast. Apparently, the sponsors really want to be there too. Um,
Yeah, I mean it's an awesome facility. Like you said, it's a world class
it
facility.
is.
Obviously, F1 and all the other bigger series, race there. So it's like you want to go there, right? It's a big,
Yeah,
it's a, it's a big track. It'd be like if there was some other road course on the circuit that all these other series are using and we're not utilizing. It's like
yeah,
I like the fact that we went there for that reason of hey, you know what? We have this awesome place down in Texas that we can utilize. It's a world class facility. Let's do it. And obviously the first couple years with the full track were hit or miss. Obviously we had that good finish with Ross the first year that we were there,
yeah,
I think, or the first year of the next gen. It might be, yeah, first,
yeah. First year of
not
the
the first.
next gen.
Yeah, first year the next gen. So, you had that kind of stuff, but still, the race was just kind of lacking every time that I
Yeah,
watched it. So I think this really, did a good job of spicing things up, and making things interesting. I found it really interesting that Kyle was just so close to winning, and the
yeah,
the interview after the race. I think that's maybe the greatest interview I've ever seen Kyle Busch give, where he lost a race by a little bit.
yeah,
He was positive. He was optimistic. He owned up to getting into Bell and kind of messing himself up, and that really took him out of the running. And but he wasn't like a Kyle Busch of the past where he's really upset and you know saying this and that and playing the blame game or whatever he would do in the past.
yeah,
So I thought that was pretty cool to see that you know
yeah. One
Kyle was able
one
to
more
that well.
one more thing I just want to hit on Coda. I made this point to my stepdad because he was there with me at the race with my mom as well. But in any case, the Coda facility is such a great balance between like elegance and an old fashioned racetrack. Like it's an F1 track, so it's nice. But
Yeah,
when you think of an F1 track like, Abu Dhabi, for example, I'm not going to wear shorts and a t shirt to Abu Dhabi. But
yeah,
Coda is still has that like almost luxury of like a very nice facility, but it's also, it's out in the country in Texas, and it's just such a great balance. I did just want to hit on that. That's at least been my experience when I've gone there.
Yeah, I think they really revitalized the track there,
Yeah,
and doing that.
with that layout.
And one of the last things I wanted to discuss with you, I thought one of my takeaways that I thought was very interesting over the last couple road course races, are the road course ringer guys still road course ringer guys? I mean, I know that
Mm,
SVG was up there, and when I say that, I'm talking about your SVG, Allmendinger, those
mm-hmm.
guys who, for a while going into road course races, everybody's like, oh, well, these guys are,
Yeah,
your go-to guys. And then, SVG was up there for, battling, but didn't, I think he finished like fifth or sixth, maybe.
yeah. In
But
stage one, he looked really good, but after stage one, he kind of, for whatever reason, he was falling
yeah,
off a
so
little bit.
it's gonna be interesting to see. I think as he learns, specifically him, AJ's been at this for a while, and he's kind of in a car that I think it's safe to say is a little bit less than what SVG has.
Yeah,
But I
I
think it'll
agree.
be interesting to see going forward how SVG handles learning to make adjustments throughout the road course races, because I think that could just be another thing where he's just got to learn a little bit. He's got to figure out what adjustments to make, what to
Right,
tell the team to keep him to where he is running really competitive, because there's been a few road course races lately where he's made starts and he's been up there and then just kind of disappeared as the race went on, and the cars
mm-hmm.
with the better teams, the drivers with a lot more experience in the Cup Series start to work their way back to the front. It's definitely a lot more important to know those adjustments and to be able to do that at the Cup level, because so many guys are so experienced and so good at it that he was able to kind of dominate these Xfinity road course races without a problem, where that
Right.
kind of stuff isn't as big of a deal as it is in the Cup Series. So I found that to be kind of an interesting thing. Christopher Bell goes out and wins. The four guys you had up there were what? It was Bell, Bush, Reddick, and I don't know who the fourth
Byron.
car in that mix was, to be honest. There it is,
Yeah,
Byron, right?
Byron.
So, like, it's crazy, not a single quote unquote road course ringer in the bunch there. We know Tyler Reddick's pretty darn good at road courses.
Yeah.
And Byron and Bell can hold their own. I thought it was interesting. Kyle Busch, I mean, the last time I saw Kyle Busch, I think up front at a road course race was that 2012 finish at Watkins Glen, right? Like, I'm sure it's maybe happened since then, but that feels like the last time that I really saw him doing really well on these road courses. So that was cool to see that he was able to
He still
grasp the
got it.
track and run that well. Um, very exciting stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with the road course ringer conversation, like, yeah, you have SVG, AJ Allmendinger, maybe some people put Chase Elliott in there, but with the next gen, he hasn't really had the domination that he had in the Gen 6.
Yeah, Cindric is another guy who's like
Yeah,
like
right.
chasing that aspect where in
Yeah,
like the Gen 6, like those guys were good on road
they're
courses, and Cindric's
crazy.
always been good on road courses, but man, I haven't seen him perform well, like really well at a road course or compete for a win since he became a full-time driver here.
Yeah. Um,
If you remember, there was that race at COTA in the Gen 6 where
yes,
he was in like the 33
the
car
33, the
and it
pure
was
tech.
raining. He was dominating because it was
Yeah,
raining and he was a road course guy. So not only did he know rain, but he knew the road courses, and like he was crushing that race for a while. So like,
yeah.
kind of interesting the change of the car. Some of the guys who were good at road courses in the past, not so good anymore. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, I throw like right on the cusp of that level of skill. I throw like Reddick, Byron, Bell.
Hmm.
Um, those guys have been really good on these road courses. Um, I mean, I feel like every road course race we go to, I'm expecting Reddick to be qualifying top three and running up front. Um,
Yep.
I mean, because he's just got it figured out. And then Byron as well. Byron really goes under the radar, and he goes under my
Sneaky
radar
good.
too because he's kind of, people always say like, "Oh, all this for a Byron win." Even during the race,
Yeah.
I made the joke to the group I was with. I was like, "Dude, if Byron comes up and steals this race, I'm never gonna watch NASCAR again. Like, I'm not tuning in for the rest of the season." Um, but he has the skill. I mean, he's won at Coda before, and I mean, he's always up there. So I think the road course ringer group has just gotten bigger.
Yeah.
And you talked
I
about
think that's a good way
Allmendinger
to put it.
and the Colleague car. The Colleague car clearly, they've got some work to do, because AJ shouldn't. AJ should be in the conversation at the end of the race. It's not AJ.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
you can very easily identify what the issue is there. But yeah, I think that group has just gone from a couple guys, maybe three, to now you've got 6 or 7 guys that are so good. And then when you get put back in the pack, kind of like how SVG did later in the race, it's so hard to overcome because not only you've
Yep.
got to get through all the regular guys, but then you have these really good guys in front of you also to get through. So yeah,
Yeah.
um,
It was a good week, I think. What do we got? Where are they next week? I don't even know.
I believe they
I
are at
should know.
Phoenix next week because
Oh yeah,
they're
they're at Phoenix too.
yeah
Yep.
they're opposite of us. So they go Phoenix Vegas. We're doing Vegas Phoenix. So Phoenix we got the option tire, which I talked about it to the group I was with. I was like, man, this is a great race, and then we got to go to freaking Phoenix. But with the option tire, I think that'll be entertaining. I'm going to be down in Houston, so I'll get to watch the race with my group, with like my brother's friends and all that stuff, where I watched a lot of the last few seasons with. So I'm excited about that. What do you think about this the option tire deal?
I think I'm still undecided on it because what we saw it at Richmond last year, I
Richmond, yeah,
think, and it seemed to be pretty interesting. I remember faintly part of that race that like I think Suarez went
yep,
on that tire somewhat early and
in
just was
stage
like,
two,
yeah, it was like crazy how much the difference was. And then, the thing is, man, like you can try and throw these option tires and this and that at people, but these crew chiefs are just so smart
yeah,
and make such good decisions that you might be able to pull a Suarez and get away with it for a little bit, but all of a sudden everybody else is going to catch up to your strategy and your idea, get on the same idea as you, and then all of a sudden things are going to kind of even out. So I think it'll be interesting to see strategy, what happens there. I think it'd be interesting to see how the tire reacts at the track.
hmm
How much of a difference does it make? That'll be something to keep an eye on for sure. I don't know if they have like a long extended practice this week. I don't think they do,
yeah. I don't think so.
but you got to think in their short 20 minutes or whatever they get, the guys are going to be out there testing, checking that out and seeing what that tire can do for them
I,
because
I
that'll be the first
believe
time they really get to experience it.
I believe I saw the Bob tweet that practice and qualifying is going to be on the harder tire.
Oh wow,
You get
okay,
one
so
set for practice and one set for qualifying, and then yeah, two
they don't
sets.
even get to touch it until the
No,
race.
if I read it correctly, and then they get 2 softs and 6 hards for the race. So
It'll be
yeah,
interesting. I mean, I think it's a cool idea. I like the idea of it. I think it opens up the possibility for some cool stuff. And if it doesn't happen, oh well. And if we do get some cool stuff out of it, it's a win, right? So I think
yeah,
there's no real negatives to it. It's either going to be another Phoenix race, or
right.
we could see something cool based on that and strategy, right? So that should be fun to keep an eye on.
I did like at Richmond when Suarez drove up there and won stage two. Like it, I mean, it just gives you more to look at in the race because yeah, Richmond can get kind of spread out and boring, unfortunately too, because that's such a great track. But
Such a great track.
um, yeah, with this car, it can get a little bit snoozy. But um, yeah, I'm glad they're doing this. And we got to remember, to anybody who's not looking forward to it for whatever reason, like the reason why they're doing this is to test that softer tire in a race situation, so we can have it in the championship race. Because
Yep.
we're not going to do the option tire in the championship, but we will have a softer tire than we have in the past if this works out, which I think it will. So, um, yeah, and then if we get like if we get like a 20 lap green flag run to the end and everybody throws on the softer tires, that's going to be really exciting. And then maybe we get a green white checkered and some people stay out on the soft, some people get new hards. Like it just gives you more topics of conversation throughout the
Yeah, and
race.
like our scuffed softs going to be a thing. Like is that if you
Maybe.
go out on a set of softs for real quick and then pit again and get a caution, are you going to be able to save that and make those useful again? So like those are like I said, the possibilities are kind of are open a lot more to things being a little more interesting than they would be with just the one set. So I like it in that aspect. Like I said, if it's great and it works and we get something awesome, that's awesome. If we don't, then it's just another week of Phoenix.
Right. And it would have been that anyways.
Exactly.
Slightly off topic. I would love to see iRacing throw that in, just as an option for us to,
It
if
would
we
be
so
interesting.
choose to put that in a
Give me the
race.
choose gun first, iRacing, please. Figure that
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
I love you, iRacing, but figure that out. That would be a lot of fun.
definitely. Yeah, you want to throw a quick prediction before we head out of here for Phoenix?
Uh,
We really should start keeping track of it. At the All-Star race, let's do like how DBC does, where you can pick one driver.
Yeah, I like
I
that.
think we can
Yeah,
start that at the All-Star race.
for the second half of the season, I like
Yeah,
it. Okay,
let's do
cool.
it.
I'm gonna, you know what? Like, it's either it's proven in the past. It's either probably gonna be a Penske car, or my random wild card is Ross Chastain. He's really good there. So,
Ooh.
you know, Ross had a little rough start to his season. I think that could be something that could turn him around. I know I predicted that not a single that the 1 to the 99 won't win a race this year, but I think this is a track where Ross has a chance. So I'll go against my own prediction. Say my wild card winner could be a Ross Chastain if it's not a Penske car.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I mean, he won the championship race here in what was that 2023? Even though he
Yeah,
wasn't
that
in the
was
final
Blaney's
four, but
title, right? Yeah.
yep. So yeah, he's definitely good here, especially with the aero blocking that Blaney was
Who you got?
so upset about. Mine, I'm gonna stick with my boring predictions so far this season. I think I picked Byron to go back to back, and then Bell ended up winning Atlanta, and then Bell won Coda. I'm gonna say it's gonna be Bell. He's won
Wow,
here in the
3 in a
spring
row?
before. I believe he's gonna do 3 in a row. I mean, people are talking about this is a breakout season for Bell. I think he won this race last season, or maybe it was 2023, but um, yeah,
He's
yeah. I
done it
think I think
before.
this was last season in the spring. Um, and I mean he's always very good at Phoenix. I mean he had maybe the dominant car last season until Logano and Blaney made the adjustments and kind of went past him. But um, yeah, I'm gonna go with Christopher Bell.
I like it.
Well, cool, man. I think we pretty much covered everything. Been on here for 66 minutes, so it's probably a good time to head
Easy.
out.
All right, brother. Well, look, I look forward to seeing you on track next week and getting back here a week from today, talking about what we witnessed on Sunday.
Yeah, and it'll be cool to. They have the real race at Phoenix, and then we go a few days later. So,
Yeah.
hopefully we can maybe consolidate some of the chat about both races. Well, thank you guys for listening. Please leave a like on YouTube, subscribe. I stream all the CRS races on this same channel. Leave a review on Spotify, and yeah, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week. See you.
Peace.